Hi, I'm TechneMoira and welcome back to my channel. Last episode, during the restoration of the Technics CD player, I promised I would show you how to repair the CD loader reader itself. And this is actually the original CD loader that was inside the Technics, and I could have reassembled it for this video, but I did not, for the very simple reason that I wanted to show you how to reassemble it. And you might say, hey, but you didn't show us how to disassemble it. Well, basically reassembling the CD reader loader, so this part, which is lying in several smaller parts here on my bench, reassembling it is basically disassembling it, but in a reverse order. So I don't really need to show you how to disassemble it if you follow along with the reassembly of the CD loader reader, right? Now, before I start working on the controller board, namely replacing the electrolytics, there is something that I need to do on the mount for on which the reader, the laser reader, sits, right? I by accident, unfortunately, broke off a little tab, which is right here. I don't know if you can see this because it's rather small. Okay, so this little hook here, which is clear, well, yellowish plastic, I broke off from, I'll show you, this spot right here, okay? And the reason why it broke off is because, you know, with the years, this kind of plastic, yeah, becomes rather brittle, and it breaks off due to heat stress and mechanical stress. So it can't take much stress anymore after a number of years because the plastic becomes brittle. So what I need to do is to degrease this spot right here with some degreaser and some isopropyl alcohol, you know. Actually no, it's methylic alcohol that I use, and once it's dry and degreased, then we can apply a little bit of super glue, you know, to the little tab and the foot on which it sits, and then let it dry. And while it dries and cures, we can work on the controller board. Alright, so I cleaned the spot where I need to repair with some degreaser and some 95% methylic alcohol. So now I'm going to use some super glue. Okay, this brand is Patex, and they call it super gel, so they call it also second glue, yeah? So cured in seconds. And I'm going to use a little wooden stick which I cut to a little spatula shape at the end, okay, to apply the glue. I found through the years that this is very handy to have as a sort of a tool to apply glue. So this gel I'm not sponsored by the brand or anything. This is something that I bought with my own money. Okay, so you can basically use any kind of super glue if you wish. This gel dries, let's say, in about 30 seconds to maybe a minute, which is great because then it gives me at least a little bit of time to correct a little bit the position of the part to glue. Okay, because quite often it's not quite in the right position you would want it to be, so you always need to correct a little bit, right? So here we go. Let's apply a little glue. So I scoop it up with my spatula like this. So you really don't need much. Okay, so don't go overboard with the amount of glue. Just a little bit is enough, and you apply it liberally to the spot to glue, right, like this. Okay, and you do the same thing on the part which broke off. So let me scoop up a little more glue. Come on, yeah, here we go. Alright, so you take the part, which I also degreased, by the way, so here it is. Okay, and I apply liberally some glue to it with the spatula like that. Okay, there you go. So now you wait about for, I'd say, 30 seconds or so. So what you do is you close back up the little tube of glue. Okay, so to avoid it drying up like this. And while you do this, you take some tweezers like this, okay, and with the tweezers you grip the little part to glue, and then you apply it to the spot where it needs to go back. Yeah, okay. I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing, but let me see if I can show it to you. Okay. Here we go. Come on. It's a bit hard to do, but that's why you need to take your time and use tweezers to help you. There you go. Okay, come on. There you go. Come on. Yeah. Okay. That should do. Voila. Alright, so if you wait, let's say, about 30 seconds, before gluing the part, the gel will grip the part to glue rather quickly, and yeah, you will be able to release it, you know, because where is it? Over there. Okay, so you'll be able to release it. So otherwise you'll be stuck there with the part in your fingers trying to keep it in the same spot, right? So if you give it about 30 seconds, the glue will start to set a little, and that way you can let go of it once you place it in its correct position, which it is right now. Okay, so there you go. What I do now is I let this cure for an hour or so, or maybe 2 hours, and while I let it cure, we can move on to the controller board and replace the electrolytic capacitors. Before I was going to replace the electrolytics on the control board, I had a good look at what was mounted on it right now, and I collected all the electrolytics from my own personal stock that I would need to replace the existing ones. So these are the ones that are originally mounted on the control board with the numbers here. Okay, so you have one, for example, one 220 microfarad 10 volts and three 220 microfarad 6.3 volts, right? Okay, so now for example for these two, I don't have 220 microfarad 6.3 volts or even 10 volts. I don't have that, but what I do have is these. I do have 220 microfarad 25 volts, and these will do just fine. Okay, so no need to go overboard. You can pretty much use any electrolytics you've got lying around, so you know, the voltage isn't that critical. I would say if there's a disparity of rated voltage of up to 20 or 30 volts, that's certainly no problem. If you go, of course, with electrolytics which are rated for much higher voltages, then it's still not a problem technically, but they will be a lot bigger in size, and they might not fit in the spot where the original capacitors are located, right? So you want to keep your electrolytics in the same voltage range and in the same size range of the originals. To unmount the original electrolytic capacitors from the controller board, I'm using my trusted ZD915 Duratool desoldering gun, right? Now, you don't actually need this kind of desoldering gun, but using one would certainly make your life a little easier, you know. But like I said, you don't actually absolutely need one. You can also do the same thing with a mechanical, you know, a hand pump, a desoldering pump. But yeah, I'm going to use a desoldering gun. Yeah, and the advantage of it is that it's far quicker and easier to desolder something, right? So here we go. Let's desolder this one. There you go. Yeah, that should be it. Sometimes the legs are a bit bent over, so what I do is I straighten them a little bit. And before I remove the electrolytic, I take note of where the negative is. Okay, and in this case, this electrolytic, the negative is oriented towards the connector here, so in the same direction as the connector. So there you go. let's remove it. And what is it? It is a 220 microfarad 10 volts. Okay, there you go. Okay, 220 microfarad 10 volts. Okay, so there you go. That's one I removed. Let me move on to the next one. Now, the engineers at Technics were really nice for us, or to us, in the sense that they marked which is the negative pole or the cathode, or which is the positive pole or the anode of the electrolytic capacitor. And in fact, the cathode, so the negative pole of a capacitor, is marked by this curved white marking here. Okay, so you can see one here too, beneath the capacitor, right here. Okay, now as you all know, electrolytic capacitors, the poles are marked by the length of the leads. Okay, so the longest lead is the anode, or the positive lead. The shortest one is always the cathode, or the negative one. On top of that, the negative one is often marked with this kind of line. Okay, you see it right here. Okay, so with a little minus symbol and an arrow pointing in that direction towards the short lead. Okay, so we removed the 220 microfarad 6.3 volt capacitor, and now we replace it by the new electrolytic, like this. Alright, and then you just simply bend over the leads a little bit, like this. Alright, and then you solder them. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I think you can. There you go. No need to go overboard with the solder, you know. Just enough to cover the whole solder spot, or the whole solder contact and the lead, like that. Okay, always check for cold solder joints, which are solder joints which do not grip the lead. Okay, so if this, for example, were a cold solder joint, after it cooled down, you would still see a little gap between the solder and the lead you soldered. When you're soldering parts, you need to have a good soldering iron with a good tip. Now, I like to use these fine conical tips. Okay, they're good all-round shape to solder parts with. There are some people who prefer a spatula shaped tip, you know, a bit like a flat screwdriver, but in my experience, a round one like this, or a conical tip, is I believe easier, handier. Okay, and you keep your tip clean using a brush like this. Okay, so this is a brass brush, metal brush, and while I'm soldering, every 3-4 parts I give the soldering iron a good brushing like this. Alright, and that keeps the tip clean and ready to use. Alright, this is the last capacitor I need to replace, the 10 microfarad, 25 volts, actually no, 16 volts, but I'm replacing it by a 10 microfarad 25 volts, which is similar in size and not too dissimilar in voltage. And there you go. All I need to do is cut the leads and I'm done. Voila. There you go. All the capacitors have been replaced on the board. So all I need to do now is give the board a cleaning. Top side, back side, and you know, clean the ribbon wire and its contacts as well. And once that is done, then we can concentrate on repairing the motor, the spindle motor assembly. Alright, I completely cleaned the mechanism inside and out with contact cleaner and a little bit of alcohol, denatured alcohol, you know, so yeah, you can still see a little bit of the spray over of the contact cleaner, but there you go. Alright, so it's clean as a whistle, yeah, it's clean as a whistle, no more dirt, no nothing. The same thing inside, so right there. What I did was I cleaned the little rail on which the laser head assembly slides back and forth, and I used the tiniest bit of universal silicone grease. Yeah, okay, this is universal silicone grease, but only a drop or so, okay, on the axle right here. Okay, so this little chrome rod you see here, just a drop of this, nothing more than that. Alright, so then what I need to do, well, yeah, my workspace here is really cramped. Anyway, what I need to do next is apply a little bit of fresh lithium grease, and I have a whole tube of universal lithium grease, so they call it multi-purpose lithium grease. Let me see, I need to remove the cap. There you go. And I'm really not going to exaggerate, okay? I'm just going to put just enough to cover the worm wheel and the little how do you call that again? I forget the word. Anyway, both the gears, yes, the worm gear. So I'm going to cover the worm gear and the little gear it powers, yeah, with a bit of lithium grease like this, okay? So I'm not going to exaggerate, you know, just enough like this, okay? There you go. So that is more than enough, okay? So and that way it should stay greased forever and ever. Well, at least for as long as the CD player should last. Yeah, which means quite a number of years. Okay, so this is enough. You don't need to go totally overboard with the grease. Next, what I'm going to do before I reattach the replacement motor, okay, I'm going to give the loader itself, so the bed as it were, on which the loader tray moves, a little bit of a cleaning, and I'm going to add lithium grease. I'm going to remove some of the old grease, which is blue in tint, yeah, and I'm going to add a little bit of my lithium grease instead, and give it just a bit of a cleaning here and there to make sure that the tray will move without problem back and forth on the mechanism. The best way to clean very narrow spaces like the guide rail where the tray slides over the loader mechanism, yeah, the easiest and best way I found is to use these handy bamboo skewers, yeah, which you can cut to a point if necessary, and you wrap just a little bit of paper towel around the tip. Alright, now I use these bamboo skewers because, well, it's a kind of wood, and wood does little or no damage to plastic, okay, and I found these really ideal to clean tight little spaces in molded plastic like this. So the trick to release the upper tray from the tray itself, let's say, from the mechanism, is that it's held back by this mechanism here, and there is this little gripper arm here, right, this hook. If you push it to the left, to the right, it releases the levers. You see, they move back and forth. These levers move back and forth, and these are what retract and lock the tray in place. Okay, so if you want to release the tray, you need to push from above, from here, with a little skewer or something. You need to push on this hook and release it like this, see? And then you can move these levers back and forth, and you can then release the tray. Okay, so yeah, it's a little bit involved, but I mean, yeah, that's what it takes. If you're wondering where I'm putting lithium grease, I can tell you, I just made, let's say, a record of where the original lithium grease was located, and I'm applying the new lithium grease at exactly the same spots where the old lithium grease was. Yeah, it's that simple. And also, I use my brain. I use logic. Yeah, I put oil or grease where I feel mechanically it would help or it would do no harm. Yeah. Obviously, things to avoid when you're putting grease is, like, for example, where belts are located, you know, drive belts and stuff like that, or where you're going to put your fingers or whatever. Yeah, you need to avoid, let's say, the logical spots where there should be no grease at all. Yeah. And for the rest, you know, if you look for some sort of guidance where to grease, well, just look at the old spots where grease was put at the factory and then just re-grease those and you should be safe. Alright, so the plastic clip that was broken off from the carrier here is glued back on, and it's holding quite well actually. And I mean, from a distance it's hard to tell that I repaired it, but if I close up on it, if my camera would be so nice to focus, come on, focus, focus. There you go. So you see here, you can barely see the repair. So that succeeded. That's great. I also grinded down the axle of the motor to size. Alright, so the way I did it was to simply mark the length that I desired, and then I took my grinder and ground off what I didn't need off of the axle, right? And of course I took into consideration, of course, the width of the grinding wheel, yeah, or the cutting wheel, and but yeah, there you go. So the stub should be the right length, give or take maybe a tenth of a millimeter or so. I don't think that a tenth or maybe even a couple of tenths of a millimeter would make a lot of difference. I don't think so, because you see, the laser diode will automatically adapt its height and therefore its focus on the disc, which is spun by the motor, right? So what am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to place this replacement motor back onto the reader head and resolder the contacts, and from there we'll go on and mount everything back on the loader mechanism itself, on the loader tray itself. Alright, so the old motor, which is this one here, yeah, and this is the new motor, okay. So we're going to mount the new motor with the screws of the old motor. Now the screws which held down the old motor are Torx screws, okay, so you need a bit like this to unscrew and screw them back on. Yeah. Okay, so this is, if I'm not mistaken, a Torx size 08, yeah, which is a small size, I'm guessing. I'm not an expert in Torx bits, but yeah, there you go. So this is the old motor. Now let's see first if I can use the screws on the new motor, right? And technically I should be able to do it, but let's see if I can. Oh, Oh dear. It never fails. I always seem to lose a screw when I most need it. But fortunately there is such a thing as very powerful neodymium magnets. The best way, in fact, not to lose tiny parts like these, you know, screws and such, is when it drops, immediately follow it with your eyes. As I was saying before I dropped the screw, it's good to test the original screws out first on a new motor to see whether they will fit or not, right? Because if they don't fit, you will have to look for a set of similar screws which can be used on the replacement motor, right? So here we go. So I'm using a Torx bit size 08. Don't ask me what exact size that would be. I would guess 0.8 millimeter. I'll measure it with my caliper in a moment, out of curiosity, let's say. So here we go. Okay. Oh yeah. So the screw certainly fits that hole. So let's try the opposite one. Oh yeah. Look at that. So yeah. It certainly fits the new motor perfectly. Alright, so let's unscrew them again and then fit the motor to the module. Alright. When the motor was fixed, yeah, on top of the motor was this little flexible wire. I don't know if it's a wire, but it feels springy, you know. I don't know if it's metal, you know, coated metal or plastic or whatever, but it seems like this spring, well, I'm calling it a spring, but the retainer bar, let's say, was mounted on top of the motor in the mount. I'll show you in a minute, but the function of it eludes me. I don't know what the exact function of it would be, you know, but here we go. So okay, so you see the two small openings there, yeah. So now let's see if the motor will fit inside the opening. Oh yes, it does. Now let's see if I can screw it onto the holder. Yeah. In fact, I can. Yeah, well, that's perfect. Needless to say that you need to be really gentle and careful around this part here, because this is where the laser reader head is located, and you really don't want any dirt or tools or components to drop on the lens, and you really don't want to touch the mechanism with your tool or with your hands, you know, because it's a very, very delicate mechanism. Alright, so the motor has been attached with the two original screws. So now this little bar here, yeah, this little springy bar, yeah, needs to go on top of the motor, and I'll show you where. Okay, there. Hang on, I need tweezers to do this. So, okay, like this. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, like that. It's magnetic, so it must be a piece of steel, coated steel. So there you go. The springy piece of metal. Let me zoom in on it. So this springy piece of metal, this black piece of springy metal here, needs to be attached like this to the motor assembly. Now, I don't know what its function is, but what I do know is that it was originally attached like this. It must have a function, I think maybe a dampening function, but either way, even if I can't tell exactly what its function is, I think if they placed it there, you should place it back, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. Alright, so I threaded the wires back into the contact of the motor, right? Now, the brown wire should be threaded to the positive contact of the motor, which is marked by this little red dot. The other wire, obviously the yellow wire, should be connected to the other contact. And I obviously made use of the little mounting holes inside these tabs here to thread the wire through. These are not very heat resistant, so you shouldn't heat the contacts up too long. Alright, so I'm going to do my best not to heat them up too hard. So here we go. I don't know if you guys can see this, but yeah, like that. And then I grip the wire with my tweezers, and I will rotate it a little bit. Yeah, like that. There you go. Alright, that's one wire soldered. Now I'm going to solder the other one. Let's see if you guys can see this. Yep. Alright, here we go. Yeah, like that. Then we take the tweezers and maybe rotate the wire a little bit like that. There you go. Voila! That should do it. And there you go. So you'll notice that on the laser reader assembly there are 4 little rubber feet. One, let me give you a close-up. So there are rubber feet like these, and there are 4 of them, 3 yellowish and 1 black. Yeah, and these are press fitted into the tray. Alright, and more specifically in these rectangular slots. Let me show you. So you'll notice there are these rectangular slots on the tray, right? So there's one here. See if you can see this. Yeah, there's one here, there's one there, then there's one down here, and then there's one here. Okay, so and that is where these rubber feet need to fit. And when I say press fitted, I mean they need to be pressed into those holes until the first edge of these rubber feet grip the sides of the hole. Yeah, so this first indentation here should fit over the edge of the hole into which they are pressed. Alright, so let me just do it and then I'll show you the result. Needless to say, you need to be a bit careful doing this. Okay. Make sure that no wires are in the way. You don't pinch off any wires. You don't ruin anything. Okay, 1. Come on. 2. 3. Alright, and now 4. Come on. Let's do it with the tweezers. There you go. Alright, so this is how they should fit. Okay, let me give you a close-up. So I'll show you the black one, because that is clearest to see. You see what I meant by press fitted? There. Alright, so and obviously the other 3 needs to be press fitted like this as well, and then the whole assembly should sit flush like this on the tray assembly. Alright, so you have this piece of plastic with its screw, so a Phillips screw like this, and then you have this oversized large screw. Yeah, so these 2 parts are what you need to attach the reader head mechanism to the tray. So the large screw, so this screw here, goes here. Let me see if I can find a good screwdriver. So you need obviously a Phillips head. which you then screw on like this. Snugly, you don't need to overdo it. And then this piece here, this piece of plastic here, alright, sits like this on top, right here. Okay, right there. Okay, right here. And then you need to screw that one in, so like this. Yeah. Again, you don't need to apply a lot of force, just snugly will do. There you go. Alright. Alright, so first we need to run this bunch of wires here back to its original position, and that was wound around the plastic like this, if I'm not mistaken, and it should fit underneath here. No, it was fit around here. Yeah, you need to get this right, okay? So, because if you don't, you're going to put unnecessary tension on the wires. Alright, so there you go. And then these wires should fit underneath this little tab that we repaired, right? Like this. Yeah. So they call this dressing the wires, right? You need to reattach this flat edge connector here, okay, without breaking it, without bending it, back into its original slot. Let me zoom out a little. So the slot in which it sat originally is here, is this little thing here, okay, and this thing here slides up and down, see? So what you need to do is to reintroduce this flat edge connector into the slot right here, all the way in, without bending it or breaking it or tearing it. And when it's all the way in, then you need to slide back this holder to lock it in place. Alright? So this is really a delicate thing to do. So, you know, there's no... I can't say if there's one specific way of doing it rather than another, except being very, very careful doing it, you know. So I'm going to try to do it without breaking anything, you know, which is not easy. I don't know if you guys can see this. I hope you can. Okay, so you need to, you see it's not straight yet, so there you go. Now it's in. Alright, so it's slid all the way in. So now what I do is I lock it into place, and there you go. Alright, it should have a snug fit. Alright, and now we need to reconnect this power cable bundle, as it were, back to the white connector up here. Yeah, if you're uncertain on how to reconnect it, my best advice is that you take pictures before you disconnect it, right? But okay, Now you need to give me a moment to do this because it's not so easy to do while I'm filming this, because the camera is really in my way right now. Oh dear. Okay, I will have to do a trick that I don't like, which is to release this. Okay. And connect it up to the connector like this. Come on. Alright, I was being stupid. You need to slide it in, not like this, obviously, but like this. Alright? So like this, not with this. Alright, so here we go. There you go. Alright, so for reference, the white wire should be to the right if you look down on the controller board from this direction. Alright, so if you want to mount back the tray on which the CD sits while the reader is closed and functioning, you need to do a number of things. First of all, you need to slide the little toothed guide rail here back on the tray. Okay, so I think it's completely back here. Alright, so then you need to release that hook here. Okay, it should be in this position exactly, and this lever should be up, all the way up. Alright, so the hook in this position, this lever up, and then you slide the tray gently to the back of the mechanism like this. Really, really, really gently. Like that. And there you go. That's it. It's mounted. Alright? I was a little too quick. We still have this to mount back. Alright? So this piece of metal and this sits on top of the tray, okay, and in fact it sits on top of the tray like this. Alright, why? Well, because it protects on the one hand the laser reader head right here, and it also holds the CD in place while it's spinning. So you need to attach this after cleaning back in this opening, and you do that by slightly bending these tabs here. And when I say slightly, I really mean slightly, or you'll break them. Okay, you do it with your fingers like this, and come on, yeah, like that. Alright, so that's how it should be connected, and then you place it on top like that, and then you need two more screws to attach this plate to the body of the CD reader, and you're done. As is usual, when the end is near, I mean in the positive sense that you're nearly done repairing something, yes, well, circumstances have a way of throwing a curveball at you. So I basically replaced the motor and all the electrolytics on the control board of the CD loader control board, and you know, but there weren't any particular problems that I could see. So yeah, I mounted it back into the CD player itself, yeah. But when I want to switch the thing on, yeah, I'm getting this on the screen, F26. So it's obviously, well, I would say obviously, a fault error message, and I interpret it as fault 26. Now, I looked throughout the whole service manual that I have available, and there's no mention whatsoever of an error F26 in a Technics SL-PG480A CD player. Nowhere. So, I mean, nowhere in the service manual. So I had to do some research on the internet, and I found in some obscure chat place somewhere on the internet a mention that the code F26 apparently would mean that the processor of the CD player is unable to communicate with the servo motors of the CD loader player. And to a certain extent I have the tendency to believe that, because one of the symptoms that I noticed on the CD loader right now is that when I switch on the CD player by pressing the power button with the working CD loader, it would, first of all, I would say no disk if there were no disk in or on the reader. Now, I happen to have mounted a disk in a bit of a alternative way on top of the CD mechanism to test that out. So obviously it wouldn't say no disk, but even so, if there were a disk and you switch on the CD player, the very first thing it will do when there is a disk inside is to spin the disk a few times, and then to move the reader head, the laser reader head, up and down a bit to try to focus on the surface of the disk and to read its content. And none of that is happening. So I can't open the CD loader, I can't close it, so I can't load a CD or unload one. The CD doesn't spin. The laser reader head doesn't move. So basically the CD loader as it is dead in the water. So I suspect there may be two problems. Either one or more ICs on the CD loader control board is damaged. That's a possibility. Or there is a bad contact somewhere. Maybe one of the ICs is loose, maybe another component is loose, who knows, maybe even the cables running from the control board to the reader mechanism or from the main board to the control board might be damaged or dirty, or you know, there might be a problem there. So yeah, I have to admit I'm a little bit, for the moment, I'm a bit clueless, so I'm just telling you a few hypotheses that I'm thinking of. But basically I'm afraid I'll have to stop the video here now. Why? Well, it's now July, beginning July, and I am going to take a break. Yeah, I'm going to take a break. Well, first of all, to rest, you know, to take a good long restful break, I hope. And second of all, I also need to do some work on my house before autumn or even winter sets in. So that will take some time too. So basically this video will be the first and last video you'll see for July. The next video you'll see will probably be end of August or beginning of September. Okay, so until then, unfortunately, this problem will have to, let's say, will have to rest. I will take a little bit of time, you know, while I'm on vacation, to think it through, maybe even to make a few measurements and test a few things, just to see whether I can pinpoint a bit more accurately the source of the problem, right? So yeah, unfortunately we have to finish this video on a B minor. Even so, it was interesting to try to repair the CD loader. It's a bit of a fiddly job, I'll have to admit. It's not something that I would do every day. But, you know, I'm curious enough. My curiosity, let's say, is piqued enough to want to discover what the problem is right now. So, if you want to think along with me, what could be the problem with the CD loader is that none of the servos, so none of the motors activate. So I can't open the tray, I can't close the tray. The CD isn't spun when there is a CD on the loader, yeah, on the loader tray, let's say. The laser diode doesn't move up and down to focus. So basically the whole CD loader is dead, let's say. And the error code the CD player gives is F26, which is an undocumented error. Okay, or well, an undocumented error code. So there, yeah, it's a bit of a letdown, but yeah, I think, you know, if I take a break and I take some time to, you know, to rest and think it over, maybe I might find the cause of the trouble. Even so, fortunately we do have a working CD loader for the CD player, but yeah, it would have been nice to have repaired the old CD loader as well. So there you go. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back soon, more than likely around end of August or beginning September, and I wish all of you a good warm summer and a nice summer holiday. Okay, so enjoy it, and I'll see you back after the summer.